Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Kathy Reichs. Kathy is a crime writer, forensic anthropologist, and academic. Kathy was also a producer of the Fox television longest running scripted drama, Bones, which is based on her novels, which in turn is inspired by her life. And today we will speak about her latest book, The Bone Code, which is Kathy's 20th entry in the series featuring forensic anthropologist Temperance Brennan. Kathy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm raising the, there we go.
So, Kathy, it's amazing the amount of work that you have done just on this series, 20 books. I mean, and that's not counting all the other, what is it, uh, novellas, young adult fiction. It's just a beautiful career, but you were started as an anthropologist. So I'm just so curious to know how that transition happened. I wonder if you could start by you telling us why you decided to study anthropology in the first place.
Oh, as an undergraduate at university, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think I had 5 different majors. But once I took a physical anthropology class, I really liked it. And then I just got my degree in that. And then I went to graduate school and I got my master's and my doctorate in that. I focused on bioarchaeology, though, on analyzing ancient archaeologically derived skeletons. So I didn't think about forensics in the early part of my career. That came later.
And exactly why anthropology? I mean, it grabbed you, it caught you interest, but what was it about anthropology that caught you interest?
There was something about combining the interest in humans, in human culture, human behavior, with physical hard science. And I like physical hard science. I like something I can measure and photograph and weigh, and so it kind of brought those two things: studying bones, studying the human skeleton, because it's physical evidence of a person, but it also tells the story of that person or that population. So it brought that together for me.
Right. Okay. And then you have also been teaching. You, in fact, you teach right here in Montreal. Well, my audience know that I'm based in Montreal. You taught at Concordia University, which is where I went to school, and McGill University. Can you tell us what's the connection? How someone from the States ended up here in
Yeah.
Montreal?
Yeah. I was teaching at University of North Carolina in Charlotte, and at a faculty meeting, and I decided I wanted to speak French. So I took an introductory class, French 101. Je m'appelle Kathy. Instead of having lunch, I would go over and sit in on a French class. So shortly thereafter, this offer for something called National Faculty Exchange, NFE, came through at a faculty meeting. And it's a program where a professor from one institution changes places with a professor from another institution. And there was a gentleman in Montreal at Concordia looking to come to UNC Charlotte. So I thought, mais oui, je parle français, I can do this. So I did, and I went to Montreal for the year, taught at Concordia and at McGill. And it was during that time that the laboratoire needed someone who was board certified in forensic anthropology, and there weren't that many of us back then, and who could work in French. So I said, yes. So that's how I started. And then at the end of that year, when I came back down south, we just figured out an arrangement where I would fly up there every 6 weeks or so, do the casework, and then, go back. And I commuted between the Carolinas and Montreal.
Wow. Okay. Well, what a shame that I didn't get to meet you then, but
I'll be
there's all perfect, perfect. We can talk about that after the show. Okay. So then you are an academic, you have students, you are in science. How is it that you became a novel writer?
Yeah, I was promoted to full professor, which is the highest rank you can attain at university. So I was free to do something new, whatever I wanted, actually. And I had just worked on a serial murder case in Montreal, and that was fully resolved. The court proceedings were finished. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try writing fiction. I have a story idea. I have the freedom to do something new. I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be a way to bring my science to a much broader audience, because I don't think anyone had heard of forensic anthropology back in the mid 90s. So I decided to create a forensic anthropology protagonist and write basically a thriller, a murder mystery.
Okay, can you, for some of the listeners, can you define what is forensic anthropologist? I mean, I had to look it up myself. It's not something that we hear about every day unless we watch TV dramas.
That's it. It's a specialty within physical anthropology in the human skeleton. And forensic anthropologists work with modern, recently deceased people, either through coroners or medical examiners or law enforcement, maybe the military, whatever, a lot of different contexts. And we help, primarily we do two things. We help identify compromised remains. They're burned, mutilated, decomposed, mummified, or dismembered, or maybe they're just bones. We help figure out who it is. And then second of all, we try to establish, in some cases, manner or cause of death. How did that person die? Was it sharp instrument, blunt instrument, gunshot wound? What was the cause of death? Sometimes we're asked to figure out how long the person has been dead. Sometimes we're asked to help in body recovery, locating and recovering following modified archaeological techniques. So, that's basically what we do.
Wow. Okay, so your first book, can you remind us what year was it written?
Yeah, I started it in 94, sent it to a publisher. It was purchased by a publisher in 96 and it came out in 97.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking is a while ago, your main protagonist is a woman, and I wonder, that is not something that we see often. Even today in 2021, the main protagonist is the man Rambo who can, I don't know, kill or do all these amazing things. But this is a while ago. I wonder if when you were trying to decide about the main protagonist, if you had to uh, think about whether to make the protagonist a man or a woman.
It never occurred to me to make it a man because I don't know how men think. I don't know how your brains work. So,
that's what my ex-girlfriend told me.
well, there you go. So yeah, I basically based the character on myself. She's smart. She's a forensic anthropologist. She works in these big government labs. She's very passionate about her work. She's interested in securing justice for the dead and also the living who are left behind. So I gave her all those characteristics. I also gave her some flaws. I didn't want her to be perfect. So she's a recovering alcoholic. She doesn't drink. She's got a wicked sense of humor. So a lot of that, it was just easier to draw on myself than to just make it up.
Right. Okay. And for young girls who are watching the series Bond, how important do you think it is for them to see this strong female character that they could use as a role model?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the reasoning also, and that was very much the reasoning behind the young adult series, the viral series, because that features Temperance Brennan's 14-year-old great niece and her three best friends who are boys. And the theme is science is cool. You can use science to solve mysteries, solve problems.
Great. Okay, so then what can you tell us about the book? What is it about? And what's the new mystery that Temperance will have to uncover?
Well, it begins, there's a hurricane down here in the Carolinas. I'm speaking to you from Charleston, South Carolina. And washes ashore a medical waste container, and inside the medical waste container are two bodies. So while Tempe is in the Charleston area, the coroner calls her and asks her to help with the examination of these two badly decomposed bodies. So as she's doing that, she notices some alarming details that are very similar to a case she had in Quebec. 15 years earlier, 2 bodies washed ashore in a medical waste container in St. Anisette. So obviously she begins looking into that, flies back. A lot of the story takes place in Montreal. So that's the main storyline.
Okay, and what is the science behind? Because all your books have some kind of science mystery, and this one, I guess the name gives it away. Then, when you said code, so what can you tell us a little bit about the science in the book?
Yeah, the genetic code.
Okay.
The human genome has now been completely mapped, and we now have tools, CRISPR, to modify the genome, to go in, cut it, insert genes or delete genes or whatever. We can modify an individual's genetic makeup. I read a story about a Chinese scientist who, against all ethical agreements in the scientific community, he went ahead and he used that technology to modify the genomes of 2 unborn baby girls. And it made me think, and everyone has agreed, we're not going to do that. We're not going to make designer babies, as it were. Well, he did it anyway. So it made me start thinking, what if someone took that technology and that knowledge and did that for nefarious reasons, for not honorable reasons? So that's one of the things that takes place in the story. So you learn a lot about human genome. You learn a lot about, there's an epidemic as well, not a pandemic, but a flare-up of an infectious disease. So you also learn a lot about that. You learn a lot about a virus, vaccination production, how vaccines are produced. And I wrote this book, I started this book 2 years ago, way before COVID, way before anybody was interested in vaccines and mRNA vaccines, et cetera. And then when it came out, it was about to come out, my editor and I looked at it and said, you know what, we probably should put something in here recognizing that COVID has come and gone. But when I wrote the book, when I started the book, COVID hadn't even begun.
Right. Well, I wonder if you are hiding your crystal ball somewhere behind.
It's a little creepy. I know.
I need help in my stock market picks, so maybe.
Yeah, it's very timely.
So what a coincidence at the same time that the Nobel Prize, what is it, Jennifer Doudna, who was also developing the genome editing, was announced, what is it, this year? Not too long ago, anyway.
Yeah, the book was finished when they were given the Nobel Prize in medicine, I guess, physiology and medicine. Yeah.
Wow. So this is an interesting topic because, of course, every scientist have agreed of not using this new science for nefarious purposes. But of course, that's what they say to the press. I wonder, in reality, how many secret laboratories there are right now with, I don't know how many hundreds of scientists or dozens or whatever actually doing things that we are not supposed to be doing at this moment.
Exactly. Well, you can clone your pet, who knew we could be able to do that.
Wow. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about how this series got into Fox, into TV? How, I mean, you are now typing in your, I don't know, in your basement like most writers do, and then how does it make it all the way to TV?
Yeah, I've had a couple of offers. None of them really felt right. And then when I talked to Hart Hansen, who's a Canadian, he became our showrunner and our executive producer, and Barry Josephson, we just all seemed to be on the same page. We wanted a character-based show, not just another police procedural. We wanted to put humor into the show, which is not typical of most crime dramas. In fact, they coined a word for us. They called us the first crimedy. So we just all see, and they wanted my input. They genuinely seemed to want my input. So it just seemed to be the right package, the right combination. So I agreed to option the character. And then Hart Hansen developed the show, created the show. And, the rest is history. We went 12 seasons. We're the longest running scripted drama in the history of Fox.
And what do you attribute the continuous success of 12th season. I mean, most TV shows go for a couple of seasons and then they die. And
Yeah.
forensic anthropology is interesting, but there has to be something else in that secret sauce that keeps the attention of the viewers coming back for one more season.
Well, I think partly it was our writers just kept coming up with these brilliant, we did 246 episodes. So they came up with 246 brilliant, you know, uh, self-contained murder mysteries week after week after week. I think part of it was due to Emily Deschanel and what she did with the character. She was brilliant with the character. David Boreanaz and the chemistry between Emily and David is just, that has to be there. You can't create that. That has to, you know, be real. Yeah, so I just think it's all the combination of, you know, great acting, good writing, great directing, the whole package came together, right?
And okay, and other than you being the writer of these novels, what is your direct contribution to the production of these episodes?
Yeah, I worked as a producer. I read every one of those 246 screenplays. I would give feedback notes, as they call them in Hollywood. And then mainly my role was to look at the science and keep it plausible. We pushed the envelope at times, but you know, we kept it plausible. And then I also wrote screenplays, wrote episodes myself. When you do that, you have to go out and do what's called breaking the story. You spend a week or two in the writer's room with the other writers, hammering out the outline for your episode. And then when your episode shoots, you have to be there for 2 weeks. That's what ours took per episode, is a 2-week shoot. So you have to be on set or on location. So I was very much involved in the show.
Okay, and now your career is, I assume, with all these novels, you are a full-time writer. I wonder how you keep abreast of the latest technologies or innovation in forensic.
Yeah, I still attend our annual meetings, the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, where all the different, well, not this year, but I will again next year, where all the different specialties come together: forensic dentistry, forensic medicine, forensic anthropology, toxicology, you know, we all come together. I attend presentations in all the different sections. I read our journals, our forensic science journals. I have a regular weekly meeting with 6 women forensic anthropologists. So I'm constantly exposed to developments in the field, and in the broader field of forensics. But I also sometimes will just do in the writer's room what we call ripped from the headlines. You know, I'll see something in the headlines, like the little story about the Chinese physician. He went to jail, by the way. And I'll say, there's and I actually keep a folder marked future stories, and I'll clip it out or print it out and stick it in there. And so my ideas come from, like every writer, I suppose, come from lots of different sources.
Okay, so wow, that's so. For example, you will be surfing the internet and you see an interesting headline, you find some kind of connection with forensic, and then that could be a part of a story or maybe the whole story.
Yeah, or you start with that, and then you say, okay, this person takes a knowledge of the genome and CRISPR. What if this? What if that? What if that? What if that? And then you spin it off into fiction.
Amazing. Well, can you then, in that case, can you tell us one more time the title of the book and where can the listeners follow you?
The book is called The Bone Code, and you can find it everywhere. It was released July 6th. You can find links on my website, kathyreichs.com. You can find me on what's the one? Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm everywhere.
Kathy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.